graciously see Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, to Prabhupada, Organande, you all, Brian Bhakti, Shri Guru, Shri Dharma, Om Vishnu Rai, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Nirvisheshna, Srinivadu, Vaskatya, Sakara. Om Agyananivradasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Vishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Vajamayam Dati Swavadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapayam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vidham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrajana Sahitam Krišna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakham Vidhamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Nilamanda Vigatpite Gopeshra Gopinanda Namaste Tapta Kanashena Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpa Trudesha Kripa Sindhu Virja Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prahladananda Chaitanya Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, Perfection of Renunciation, text 13. Panchaitani Mahabaho Panchaitani Mahabaho Karnani Nibodame Karnani Nibodame Sankhye Kritanti Proktani Sankhye Kritanti Proktani Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam Panchaitani Mahabaho Panchaitani Mahabaho Karnani Nibodame Karnani Nibodame Sankhye Kritanti Proktani Sankhye Kritanti Proktani Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam Panchaitani Mahabaho Panchaitani Mahabaho Karanani Nibodhame Karanani Nibodhame Sankhye Kritanti Proktani Sankhye Kritanti Proktani Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam. Ladies. Panchaitani Mahabaho Karanani Nibodhame Sankhye Kritanti Proktani Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam. Pancha, 5. Etani, these. Mahabaho, Almighty Armed One. Karnani, causes. Niboda, just understand. May, from me. Sankhye, in the Vedas. In the Vedanta, Krita Ante, in the conclusion, Proktani, said, Siddhaye, for the perfection, Sarva, Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Almighty Armed Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. So please repeat. Almighty Armed Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. Purport. A question may be raised that since any activity performed must have some reaction, how is it that the person in Krishna consciousness does not suffer or enjoy the reactions of work? The Lord is citing Vedanta philosophy to show how this is possible. He says that these are 5 causes for all activities, and for success in all activity, one should consider these 5 causes. Sankhya means the stalk of knowledge, and Vedanta is the final stalk of knowledge accepted by all leading acharyas. Even Sankara accepts Vedanta Sutra as such. Therefore, such authorities should be consulted. The ultimate control is invested in the Supersoul. As is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya Jaham Riddhi Sanavishto. He is engaging everyone in certain activities by reminding him of his past actions. And Krishna conscious acts done under his direction from within yield no reaction, either in this life or in the life after death. Again, Panchayatani Mahabaho Karnani Nibodhame Sakhe Kritanti Praktani Sariye Sarva Karmanam. Almighty Armed Arjuna, according to Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shrivani Pasvati Siddhartha. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it appears that there is some contradiction. The soul is sometimes declared to be the doer, and sometimes it says that the soul is not doing anything. So, is he doing something, or is he not doing something? Whoever spoke the Bhagavad Gita is not really so sure, so he decided to say both things in case one of them was true. No, actually, the soul is doing something, but what he's doing is not material, because the soul is on a different platform. If he was on a material platform, then he might be able to do something material. But because he's not the controller of the material nature, therefore all he can do is desire. But that desire is actually a very significant activity. That is what either liberates us or entangles us. The question is, what we're desiring. So what we're going to desire will depend upon what our knowledge is. For instance, probably, and I'm quite sure, none of us are just waiting for the class to end so we can go to McDonald's and have a hamburger. Anyone anxious to have a hamburger at McDonald's? I don't think so. But that's a possibility. But generally speaking to the devotees, it doesn't even pass our mind. And even if it did, no one would take it seriously. But for a normal person, that thought would be enough to drive them 50 miles to go to the nearest McDonald's. On the other hand, if after this class there were some nice clubmans and halwa, that thought might pass through our minds to go and take some prasadam. So the thoughts of the desires arise within our mind. The question is, how we take them. Do we desire, as Krishna says, kama kami, apuryamana machala pratishtam samudram apa pravishanti yadvat tadva kama ya pravishanti sarve seshantim apnoti nakama kami. Because material desires are one of the possibilities to come through our mind. But it's not that because the material desire comes through our mind, we have to immediately go, yes sir, whatever you want, and immediately go and serve the material desire. Krishna gives the example that a big ocean, even though so many rivers enter into it, it's never disturbed. So it's not that one can simply sit there and try to remain aloof from desires. After a while we have to do something. We can't say this is bad, that's bad, everything's bad. Then we'll wind up being bad. We have to know what's good, what desire to actually do that's actually positive. So those are the desires that lead us to become conscious of Krishna, because being conscious of Krishna, the ocean of Krishna consciousness, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also said is the ocean of bliss, Ananda Buddhivardhana. If we're actually aware of Krishna and his associates, their names, their forms, their qualities, their activities, if we're absorbed in such consciousness, then we'll be in an ocean of bliss. And even if some thought comes through our mind about gratifying the desires, it won't seem very significant. And therefore, it would be very unlikely to be driven to satisfy such an insignificant desire. Sankhya purvaka namagan nativi kolola sankritito tyakpa deha tyakpa purnama shesha mandalapati shrenim sada tuchava, insignificant. For the materialist who has no experience of Krishna consciousness, such desires are the only thing that's significant. But if one gets a higher taste, Prabhupada says, then the pale material desires become insignificant. Therefore, our main emphasis is try to understand how to cultivate the right desires and actually become attached to those desires, to fulfill those desires. That's called devotional service. The background of devotional service is a sambandha that everything here is Krishna's property. And therefore, in the next verse where it talks about Adishtanam tata karta karanam chapitag vidan vivites chapitam preshta vividas chapitag chestani daivam chaivantra panchama. One of the 5 causes of activity is adhisthana, the place where we're performing the activity, namely this body. And then there is the senses, then there is the soul, then there's the super soul, then there's the activities brought about under the influence of false ego. So these are all factors, and we have to understand them properly. Otherwise, we think that when we're being impelled by some material desire, then we think that we have no alternative but to fulfill it. Rather than trying to take shelter of Krishna, trying to get a higher taste, and being undisturbed by such desires. In other words, if the material nature approaches us and say, you have to fulfill this desire, this will actually make you happy, we can become very disturbed and say, wait a second, just leave me alone. So that's a perfect invitation for the material nature to disturb oneself even more. Material nature thinks, well, he wants me to leave him alone. That means he really wants me, but he's averse. He's developed a negative attitude towards me, so that means he's really attached to me. In a negative way, of course, and then Maya will disturb one even more. But if the desires come, and one is actually convinced at least that the better option is some spiritual option, just like for most devotees, I don't know of any devotee who ever left the movement because he was mad after meeting. It's clear that prasadam for practically everyone is a higher taste. On the other hand, it's very rare anyone leaves because of gambling. Although that might be a possibility, but quite rare. Anyone can get any kind of taste from gambling, especially when you don't have any money. On the other hand, intoxication, that's more prominent, and of course the most prominent is illicit sex. The whole drama that we can actually find love in the material world with our soulmate and live happily ever after. Have our expansions, plenary and partial expansions, ride around town in our Garuda, develop a Vaikuntha planet in the midst of Ljubljana. So that dream is there for the conditioned soul, which is the basic dream. Of course, even stronger than that is music. Generally devotees, some devotees will abandon everything for music, especially certain kinds of music. In any case, these desires, if we become Krishna conscious, then gradually they won't seem as prominent. If we believe it's not possible to live without these things, that Krishna consciousness has only some limitation, that Krishna can only give us so much happiness, and therefore without these other kinds of material happiness, we can't really be happy. So such a conviction will keep one in the material world perpetually. If one is convinced that Krishna consciousness has a very limited realm of happiness, then Krishna will not disappoint one. In other words, if Krishna actually revealed how much happiness there is in Krishna consciousness, we'd automatically give up our material desires. But because we don't want to give up our material desires, therefore Krishna doesn't reveal how much happiness there is in Krishna consciousness and spoil our material existence. So one has to be willing to actually be happy, which for the conditioned soul is quite a endeavor. It's quite a... To give up one's misery takes a lot of knowledge and renunciation. Because material life is based on a dream, and we become attached with this dream since time immemorial. And somehow or another Maya has convinced us that although since time immemorial it has never worked out the way we wanted it to, but this lifetime is better, because now we've been born in a very auspicious place, holy place, Ljubljana, where everyone is very advanced. They've solved all the problems of life. Soon there won't be any old age, disease, and death here. And we can have our family life, it'll go on forever. And there's some religions say, well, even if you have to leave your body, simply you take your family with you to your next destination. And there you enjoy even more. And eventually, you get to become multi-marketed. You actually get to become a Brahma somewhere. You have all your family there, grandfather, grandmother, dog, cat, parakeet, everyone's there with you. Maybe you have 4 heads, maybe you have 2 heads, whatever, but everyone's there and you're actually happy. You're in charge of the universe, and when you do a good job in the universe, they give you a couple of universes to take charge of. And it goes expanding forever. So these are all imaginations. It doesn't happen. Practically everything that goes on in the material world is imagination. Or I would say they think they're conquering. So many people, so many nations have come, they have conquered some land. But the people who conquered, they don't stay there very long. They have to leave. Prabhupada said, Napoleon, they have some statue of Napoleon. Napoleon thought he was in control of Europe at one time. But where is he now? The only thing left is a statue. And the only thing that happens to the statue is the birds, they come without a stool on. That's what's left of Napoleon. And for all we know, Napoleon may be one of those birds passing stool. So he thought he was in control, but actually the material nature, time is in control. And no one surpasses time. So it's all just an illusion that we're making any kind of advancement, or that we're controlling material nature, or that we control anything here. We can control our wife, our children, our car, our business, If we can control it, then we'd be able to stay here forever. But because material nature is controlling us, eventually we have to leave in a very short period of time. And the only thing we get is we carry the reactions for our desires, what we became attached to. Our activities are born out of our desires, and our desires are born out of our activities. So it's a cycle. When we desire something and fulfill it, then material nature fulfills it for us, and we get the reaction for that desire, and that activity that we're performing will produce another desire. So out of activities, desires are born, and out of desires, activities are born. And it just keeps on going on and on and on. And sometimes it results in one form of life, and sometimes in another form of life. But it's an ever-ending change of circumstances. And it's not driven by us, it's driven by our desires. The material nature makes the arrangements so that according to what we desire, we'll have what we deserve, our desires will be fulfilled. The conclusion is, one should become aware that this property, this material nature belongs to Krishna, and we should consider what Krishna wants us to do with it. And then we won't have to become entangled in trying to fulfill material desires. And we fulfill Krishna's desires, then eventually we'll become Krishna conscious, and we won't be affected by material existence anymore, because our actual consciousness will be in the spiritual platform of awareness. And for one who doesn't want to serve Krishna, no matter how pious or impious they may be, they have to remain in the material world. Maybe they go up to the heavenly planets for some time and have heavenly desires, but after some time they have to come back to mundane, the other planetary systems, and have those desires. So, if we don't find out what the real desire is, we're going to have to settle for other kinds of desires. Therefore, we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, to find out what Krishna wants us to do. And if we desire to do that, then our lives will become perfect. We don't have to become rich or famous. We don't have to become powerful. We don't have to become anything. We just have to become sincere servants of Krishna, and then our life, our real life, spiritual life, will be successful. So I'll stop there. Any questions? Comments? Yes.
So this material world is real, just our perception of it is imaginary.
Well, it's real in the sense that it exists, but not in the way we think it exists. Just like a mirage, to us is real, but it doesn't really exist. Or the forms that material nature take, for instance, is like a mirage. We think it's one thing, but actually it's just material nature manifesting itself in a certain way that we think is actually a form. It actually has some substance to it. But because it's constantly changing, we can't really say that a form is real, because the next moment it's a different form. And with form we have now, eternally it disappears eternally. So what is the reality about it? The energy is real. The form taking different forms, our conception of it is unreal. It's like watching a movie and believing that we become Tarzan or Jane. It's not real. We haven't become the Tarzan or Jane. Nor have we become this material body. Nor do we have anything to do with material nature, but the material activities. But because we're believing like that, therefore we're desiring like that, therefore we're entangled in something which is ultimately just temporary. But because we're entangled in temporary material nature, we have to stay here eternally in different forms. So as I said, the energy is real, it's eternal, it's Krishna's energy, but our conception of what's going on here is unreal. Only when we take the devotional service can we understand things properly. Then our activities become real, because they're done to please Krishna. Then instead of acting under the influence of the external energy, we'll be acting under the influence of the internal energy. That internal energy is real, is eternal. Anything else? Yes.
So what can we do if people who are like outside, they think that they are happy, they are enjoying, and that we are crazy, and we are just like the opposite of what is.
Yeah, that's what Krishna says. So, what to do?
How can we?
Go and chant Hare Krishna, give them some prasada, and maybe one day some of them will become inquisitive to find out why they're suffering. If they're convinced that they're happy and that we're miserable, of course, they'll never approach Krishna. But that's not, everyone has their free will. If Krishna's not interfering with people's free will, we're not going to be able to interfere with it either. All you can do is try to give them a higher taste in Krishna consciousness. If we become overly concerned with everyone else and we become morose, then we won't be able to save ourselves, but to speak of anyone else. We think somehow or another Krishna's lacking. He doesn't know how to handle the material universe properly. And that it was really up to us to save people because Krishna doesn't seem to be able to do it. Then we'll be quite mistaken. Not only that, we'll become overly attached to what we're doing and take some false conception that we're the savior. All we can do is become an instrument. And then it's up to Krishna. And it's up to the individual souls how much they accept or what they accept. Anything else? Yes?
Sometimes I understand it like a total fiction, desire Krishna, and I would like to ask, would it be easier if Krishna would show me that he exists and if it's not something in my imagination, and then my desire to reach him would be much easier?
Yes. He's trying. But you have to become deserving. First deserve, and then desire. So as much as we deserve, then Krishna will reveal himself. Are you chanting japa? Yeah, so how can you chant? If Krishna wasn't that different from his name, how long could you chant japa for? Have you ever tried chanting water, water, water?
No.
Well, people were chanting Hare Krishna, and it's always different, fresh. And do we actually believe this whole cosmic creation just popped in out of nothing? That there's no intelligence behind it? Planets are moving their orbits by accident. The sun's rising at a certain time by accident. We're eating food, digesting it, assimilating and eliminating unneeded parts. It's all by accident. We have such a wonderful machine called the human body. You know anyone who's manufactured such a body? So it must be made by this supremely intelligent person who's made such machines in 8,400,000 species. So it's obvious, it's right before us, how Krishna is the supreme. The question is whether we're willing to accept him as the supreme.
Sometimes I just can't accept it that it's God. Like I think it's painter or neighbor or friend or mother, and I try to see Krishna behind this relationship or that idea or I don't know some painting or whatever in my daily life.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's so strange for my mind, for my intelligence.
Therefore, we should chant Hare Krishna and listen, so we can actually associate with Krishna. Otherwise, by mental speculation, we can't get very far. Or even philosophical speculation. It's nice to try to see things in relation to Krishna, but then we have to act as if Krishna is there by chanting and hearing with attention and devotion. Because unless we're actually associating with Krishna with attention and devotion, it's all on the mental platform, our conceptions of things. There has to be actually some feeling put into it, not just mental. Krishna doesn't reveal himself by mental speculation. He reveals himself through our service attitude, loving service attitude. Yes?
From Vedas we know that Krishna is giving us what we want, what we desire. But I would say from my point of view, now the life that I'm living, I have a human form, and I learned that you can see in a two-way your life, as a good one or as a bad thing. It can also happen to me an accident, but yet I can see it as a good thing. I'm not so stressed. I just I'm towards to laugh against the thing that happened. From which mode of material from material modes of material nature is this feeling that I'm having? It's so funny. At the moment I'm so satisfied in every point of view. So what should be then a trigger for me to get much more involved in a Krishna conscious, in a way to practice the way Srila Prabhupada
associate with the devotees, chant Hare Krishna, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, worship the deities, serve the devotees, and try to make your life spiritual. And to associate with Krishna.
And if I'm thinking that everything is okay, it's from
Well,
the
you'll
mode
find out soon enough it's
ignorance. Huh?
Just wait around for some time.
Yeah, okay, but still, I can see, I can also step in shit and I'll say like, oh my God, it's a bliss.
Yeah, just wait around.
But this is from a mode of ignorance or from a mode of passion? It's not a goodness, huh?
No, it's not goodness.
Okay. Thank you for...
Prabhupada said even the worm is still complacent. He thinks, my life is made. Fresh food, unlimited, my whole family's here, don't have to work, it's nice and warm, don't have to pay for any heat. So, everyone in the material, many living entities in the material world are complacent in their material existence, but not for long. No one survives there very long. Everything we're happy about will eventually be deteriorated and taken away from us. Yes.
Maharaj, do we ever get lost of lust? Or,
Yeah, sure. When we become Krishna conscious, we're actually absorbed in an ocean of pleasure, loving pleasure to Krishna, then there won't be any such thing. But that's quite advanced. But as we make progress, then gradually we'll see that it's a possible reality. As we actually come closer to Krishna, then the coverings of material nature are vanished. And we can see things properly, we can feel things properly, we can do things properly. We become detached from the things that we become presently attached to. And we think they're so wonderful. They become gradually less significant in our lives. Alright, thank you very much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Ki Jai, Prabhupada Ki Jai, Prahladananda.